Welcome to the Leafy Podcast, helping real estate investors and entrepreneurs grow.
Let's start the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leafy Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Tammy Geerling, the podcast manager, and today I'd like to introduce Jennifer Gregoric. She is our COO of Leafy Legal Services, our boss lady. I've known Jennifer forever, and she's an amazing person, our host for today, and she has an awesome guest that she's going to be introducing here in just a moment. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, Jennifer.
Hey, everybody. I am so stoked about today's episode because there is this great podcast that's for mompreneurs, and it is just hot, hot, hot. So today we have the main host of this. Well, I guess they're both main hosts, but we have one of the hosts of the show, and I'm so excited. You've probably heard about this. She's been an entrepreneur for 13 years. She has a business with her husband. They work full time. She is an avid traveler. She's even a kettlebell certified person, which I wanted to find a lot more about from it. And her and the other host look to empower entrepreneurs to kick ass in their life and business and do so with fluff and no BS. They are the host, or she's the host of the Hot Mess to Success podcast. So today we have Amanda Balcazar, and I'm so happy. Thanks for coming on, Amanda.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. It was so cool to be able to connect at, different events and meet incredible people. And I'm really excited to be on. So thank you.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we connected with you at the podcast movement. I think that Tammy,
yes.
Right?
It was
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
It was the first event that I had been through in doing podcasts, because this is a new space for me as well. So like I said, myself and my co-host, Laura Host, which is actually her name. We were like, did you do that for the podcast? She was like, no. So, but yeah, we came together and partnered up on this, and it's been a awesome project.
Well, that sounds really great. So tell us a little bit about the podcast itself. Like, what made you decide to specifically get this niche, Hot Mess to Success? And can you describe why you call it Hot Mess to Success? Because I love that story and I want everyone to hear it.
Yeah. So, okay. So my husband and I have been working full-time in e-commerce for 13 years. And we just recently, the past couple years, had started going to some e-commerce events. And I am more of the, social person. I really enjoy connecting and meeting with people. So I am the one that typically goes to these events, and it is so fun for me to meet, especially women that are in this space. Because initially when I started going, the numbers were skewed. There were more men in this space. So it was just instant for me to gravitate towards the women. And I started meeting them, and it was incredible to hear what they've accomplished. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where are you? Why don't I know about you? Right? Like, because a lot of them are mompreneurs killing it in their business. They don't have time to be out there, on the stages and leading all this stuff. Because
Right.
the reason they do their business is because they want to be there and be with their children and raise their kids and stuff. But they're also, seriously, I'm talking 7-8 figure sellers on Amazon. And I'm like, holy smokes. Well, what happened was, you see them and you're like, wow, these amazing people are up on this pedestal. Well, I would go back and we would connect. We're like, hey, let's go grab a drink after the event. And we're chatting, and you hear all about the messy middle, about what they've had to go through and the struggles and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, that is so inspiring. And nobody knows about this, because that's just not something that people, unless you're getting out there purposely to share your content, people aren't hearing that. So here I am going to these different events, getting inspired, realizing that this is amazing. And then I meet the new person that's coming into this space, and they are very self-conscious. They don't really know if they have what it takes. They're hitting struggles, and they're not hearing the stories of how people got pulled through it. So I'm getting all that, but I'm like, gosh, other people are not. So I'm like, we need to bring this to the moms in their, through a podcast, so that they can hear about that hot mess part. So it gives them the inspiration to push through and keep going, and know that, it's just part of, the process of being an entrepreneur.
And I think actually this appeals a lot more to just moms, because I know that we have an entire generation right now that is just struggling so hard. And all they see are, well, they're stuck in their echo chambers, right? So they see the Kardashians or Snapchat and the Biebers and whatever. And so they see these people, or like they get the story, oh, Kylie is a self-made billionaire. And you're like, okay, yeah, no, right? Because you connect with one of those powerful families in the world. And they don't see, they see these people and they go, yeah, well, that can't happen to me. That can never happen to me, because who are their family? Who's their family? Who are they from? How much money did they already have? They probably had a silver spoon in their mouth. They probably came from a lot. And so it's self-defeating, you know, of course, telling yourself, well, there's no way I can do it. And I'm like, you don't know them. You don't know what's happened. But when you can hear the story, just like you said, the hot mess part of it, of how they've had to overcome things, like your co-host, Laura, I was listening to the podcast where she was talking about being in college and bleeding everywhere and calling her parents thinking she's going to die. And then they find out she has a very severe part of Crohn's disease. Yeah. And then on top of that, she gets psoriasis all over her body. Right. And telling the attitude of when the doctor says, so this is genetic, right? And she goes, no, I'm just an overachiever. I'm going to be the first one. And I thought that was hilarious, right? Yeah. But then I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, and yet she battles a very serious disease and illness. If y'all hear thunder, it's because it's Tropical Storm Imelda.
Yeah, I didn't hear it, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was a pretty big one. So I think that story, I just love what you guys are doing, because they need to say that this wasn't 50 years ago, back in the day. This wasn't the boomers, because now you have just hatred towards that entire generation, right? Right. This is right now. These are, Gen Xers, this is millennials, this is even Gen Z. They're able to do it. You're able to break through, but this is how you have to do it. And it's how you think about it, and, the process. It's the process of, like you. I'm going to this podcast movement and I'm listening to all this incredible stuff. And I realized no one's hearing this but me. I'm going to make a show. And now you have this fabulous show that's so much fun to listen to. This is so cool.
Thank you. I mean, I think one of the other things too is also, like, when I started hearing that too, because of course it was 10 years into my journey when we started hearing these stories. So I did have some of that resilience. I did understand that too, but then also people don't understand that it's a constant. Things are constantly it's that entrepreneurial roller coaster. You really have got to embrace that and understand that. So no matter where you're at, it's like life too, right? Something happens and you're like, this is great. And then something is like, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with this? And then you get over it and you're like, this is great. So it is that. And when you can minimize those like downturns and cope with them better, that's when I see those are the people that I see that are highly successful. And I'll give the example. You started talking about my co-host, Laura, and she's like, I'm so over talking about this, but about a couple weeks into this project with her, she found out that her husband was cheating on her, and of 10 years. Okay. And she's going through a divorce. So here I am. We just started this project. We just partnered up. She has 3 little babies, 3 little kids that she's taking care of, single mom now. And I was like, Laura, do we need to table this? And she's like, absolutely not. First of all, she's a beast. Okay. But so here's the deal. I'm like, wow, this is incredibly powerful. Like, we are doing it from scratch. Like nothing. I was like, we did not intentionally have this happen, obviously, but she's pushing right through it, learning everything about podcasting, learning everything that we need to do to actually build out a business while going through all of that. Like, seriously, like,
I don't know. See, that to me, that's so inspiring, because divorce is, even the best divorces, because I've been married more than once, bunch of times. Okay, I'm Elizabeth Taylor. Just, I don't even care. And but even the best ones, when you're friends, is the most heartbreaking thing you can go through, because you vowed, and you mean the vows when you say them. At least one of the people means the vows, that this is it for the rest of your life. When you die and you go to God, he's going to say, well, who'd you pick? And this one, and this is what we were able to do, and this was the family we created, and this was the life that we had, and this is our, even if you don't have kids, this was the partner, and we were able to put good into the world. Because the idea is you leave your parents, you meet your partner, and you may or may not have children, you want to, but even if you don't, go out and create. I'm giving you this helpmate. And when that all ends, even if it's great, you're devastated. You're on the floor. You are going through Walmart and then sitting down in the aisle just to sit, because how did that happen? So anyone who can push through that and learn a brand new skill and a brand new business,
amazing.
Man, you are amazing. You are amazing.
I mean, absolutely amazing. And again, the reason why that's happened is because she's been an entrepreneur for 10 years and she's been through a lot of crap, right? So this is absolutely devastating. This is the biggest challenge that she's ever gone through, but she also has a very strong faith in God. And she's just like, you know what? I don't know why. Like she's broken down a ton of times, and it's hard. I mean, it's not like we were like best friends coming on this. Like we knew of each other. We worked through it, deciding if we're going to be partners, but she's in Minnesota. I'm in Michigan. So she's going through all this, and I'm like, I get a Voxer message because we use Voxer a lot, and it's like a walkie-talkie app. And here I am, she's saying, well, I just found out this. And I'm like, like, oh my, what? Like, and so, it's been quite a transition. And then a couple months into that, after she had moved out into a new house, she found out the landlord wanted to sell her house, the house that she lives in. So she's like, I have, 2 weeks to move. So she's like, well, we're doing set up, this, that, and the other. It's been great. And again, I'm telling you, she's absolutely amazing. And now she's like, okay, we did season 1. I talked enough about this. She's like, we're on to season 2. She's not over obviously what's going on. She's like, but this is, we've shared this, and not that she's not going to continue to share points. She's like, but I'm done like talking about this. We got stuff to do. Let's go. So I just am amazing. Absolutely amazing.
But you know what? You talk about like faith and getting through it. She had this vehicle to talk about this. So even though she's like, okay, can we pause so I can cry hysterically for 10 minutes and then come back on, and then say, I just cried hysterically for 10 minutes, she had you. So, and then she has the listenership. So now you have people that can do that. So nobody wants that to happen, but at the same time, if it had to happen, then look at all the blessings that have been given. So I think it's, if you can, sometimes you don't see that, you never see that really when you're the one going through it. But later on, you can go back and went, man, somebody was really holding my hand through that time.
And then some people can look and be like, they'll be like, oh my gosh, and I have these 3 children to take care of. You know what she says? I'm so blessed to have these little ones to take care of, to push me. Like, seriously, like that is just the mindset. It just gives me chills, and I'm just so proud of her, and just so excited to continue to be on this journey. I mean, like, how much more confidence can you have in a partner when like she's like, no, we got stuff to do, like we have people to inspire, let's do this. So it's exciting, and we're really looking forward to a season 2. And now, after we learned kind of how to do this podcast thing and what we want to do, really start to continue to level up and be able to bring some really great value to our audience.
That's just really, really great. So for season 1, do you have, like, for when you did this, is it just bringing the stories out, or do you have a theme? Like, do you have a certain theme that you're looking for when you're trying to get people on your show? I know that you have a huge giveaway right now.
Yeah.
It's $1,000 giveaway, right?
It is. It's over $1,000. Yeah, we have some really cool stuff. And so with the theme, you know what, that was something that it was tough. So we started with the who we wanted to serve. You're supposed to come up with like your person. That's why I say mompreneurs, and I know our message can relate with a lot of different people. So I do really think of it more like women entrepreneurs, because I have a strong passion to be able to help young women have that belief in themselves, to be able to follow their dreams and things like that. But you really kind of want to narrow it down, which is what people say. So that's kind of why we focus there. But more so just kind of being able to bring that confidence and inspire women in that in that way through being an entrepreneur. Because I think a lot of times, even if people have, they might have a side hustle and they're like, I don't understand how I'm going to be able to get this to be like my full-time thing. I'm tapped out, right? So we want to also be able to provide them. We do interviews, and we're going to shift this around a little bit for season 2. We were more structured on like interview on Tuesday, and we have our, Laura and I discuss some like actionable things on Thursday, like, because we do it's 2 times a week. We are going to restructure more to be focused on the content that we want to deliver, and then back it out from there and say, okay, this is what our audience, we know what they, are wanting. So then we're going to fill it in from there. So it might not be, it will always be, right now it's going to be that Tuesday and Thursday. So we'll always have 2 per week. But it's going to be more content focused rather than that structured, hey, here's the interview, here's whatever. But we are still going to have that element of it. So I don't know if it's going to be that 50-50 with the interview, but I just think that is such a key piece to help. But we're going to be providing very, in like succinct, actionable things for people. And we're going to be, more structured and a little bit more planned in that area, because there's so much that people want to implement into their business that we've been able to do because we've done a lot of different things. So that's what we want to be able to help with.
You know what I love about this is I often tell people when I've done, been talking even to clients, you do want, as an entrepreneur, you don't want to make it perfect first and then launch. You want to build the plane as you're flying it, right? Yeah. But you do have to have the structure. Yeah. So as long as you have a solid foundation, which is my entire company, what I do is I help people get a solid foundation first so that they can fly. But once you have that, you can't just set it and forget it. It's kind of like a business plan. Oh, we're going to do this business plan so we can get money and we can go to the bank and we can get this business plan or this pitch or whatever. But just like you did with the show, and this is very important for any entrepreneur, not just mompreneurs. Once you have your plan in place, if it's a good plan, you need to make sure that this is a very good actionable plan, and you'll feel it when it's right. You have to go back and constantly revise it because the world changes. Just like Amanda just said, the customers change. What they want, they feel the listeners want will change. And so you make these little tweaks, but you still keep the structure going. You don't stop, you don't freak out. And also too, you don't do a complete 180. I have seen so many people that the first time they feel a little bit of pushback on anything, okay, this isn't working, we're just going to do something completely different. Like, okay, but you're an accountant and now you're going to open up a zoo. And then the week after that, you're going to go fly to the moon. I don't see how that business plan is really going to work for you. Right. And sometimes you see it like that. They just they'll have teams of people that are marching forward. And then suddenly they'll just do this complete 180 shift in the middle of the plan. They never let things end. And that just drives me nuts. So I love it when you were saying, so that we're still going to keep it like this, but we're going to tweak it like that. Love that, because that's really the way to make it successful. Yeah.
And we knew we had to. And I think that's one of the things that from being in e-commerce with my husband, also that I've realized and is very important. And we like to do stuff in like basically 90-day type plans. Like we have a big vision for what we want to accomplish, and then we break it down. And it's interesting because people say 5-year vision. Like I can do a 5-year vision with my husband and kind of have like a staticky overview about kind of where we want to be in life. But it's not rigid at that point until like I break it down. And we like to look at things annually and say, okay, what do we want to do this year? And then we break it down into those 90-day spurts. And then from there, little chunks, because again, you have to revisit it. It changes constantly, but in those 90 days, we're seriously focused. And that's what Laura and I knew. We're like, okay, this is what we need to focus on. We need to learn how to do the podcast part. This is totally new to us. And then now we're getting together physically. Like we're gonna kind of have a little bit of a mastermind for a couple days. We're getting together and we're gonna go over, okay, this is what we want to do for that next 90 days. And like you said, the big vision didn't change, but you have to go in and you have to adjust and you have to be okay with that, because otherwise, if you think that you're just going to have this plan and you take forever to plan and you don't get started, nothing's ever gonna get done. So, but I loved what you said about why when you talked about people kind of doing a 180 already. And it's like, the reason I do feel that happens is because they didn't take the time in the beginning, which is really hard for some go, like, this is too much time. Like, we don't want to do this. I feel that way. Laura feels that way. I know when I talk with my husband, sometimes we feel that way. Like, the whole planning stage feels almost like you're wasting time because we're in such a hyper speed thing. And I get it. Like, you don't want to sit there and plan forever, but if you are, an entrepreneur and you get stuff done, you need to have that discipline to step back for a minute and really dig into, like you said, that foundation. Everything else can change and pivot, but if you don't have that foundation, that's when you're pivoting to something totally different. It makes no sense. So you did not take the time to think through not only what does this look like. It's not just like, this is the flavor of the week, this is what I want to do. Because believe me, I've been there. You mentioned kettlebell sport trainer. Like, I have my personal trainer cert and all this kind of stuff. And I never really thought of it as being part of my business plan per se. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm interested in this, so I'm going to do this. I'm interested in this, so I'm going to do this. And so, like, being focused and realizing, like, wait, how does that serve me in my 5-year vision? Like, if you can't look at that and say, this didn't have a piece, like, we've gotten different opportunities that have been, presented to us, my husband and I, and we're like, wow, this could be so cool. It's what we love to do. It's in fitness. But we realized at that point, this was just a couple of years ago, we would have to have a physical location. And even though we were so attracted to it, we knew it'd be fun. We knew we could make it successful. Like, we've always known that we did not want to have a brick and mortar type business. It's just not, we've always set up ourselves so we can just go anywhere, laptop lifestyle. So we had to have that discipline to say no to that. But the only reason we could do that, and it was relatively an easy decision, even though we wanted to, both of us were like, oh, because this doesn't align with our foundation of what we want to do. So I think if people can actually, again, that's even part of our passion. So you might get confused on that. Like, wait, but I'm passionate about it, I'm going to do it. You need to think through, how does this look like in a day-to-day life too? We're like, we were going to have to physically be there because we're not going to have the money to have somebody be at this business. So if we didn't think it through from that process, I'm like, I don't want my day to look like that. So guess what? Now, thankfully, I realized that before we invested all of this money, before we committed to this minimum 3-year plan, before we had a physical store that then we were chained to, and that our daily lives did not look anything of how we envision them.
I just want to talk, I just want to say yes, because that's one of the things we do. We to help people structure their company properly. An entrepreneur, and we have a very large real estate investor. That's really the biggest bulk of it. But we also do entrepreneurs. But one of the first things you do when you come to us and say, okay, we want to start this company. Okay, so let's just start you out with an LLC, right? Yeah. So you can get the protection of, that's, a popular structure. You have to do an operating agreement. And when you go through an operating agreement, you have to spell out, especially if you have a partner, anyone else, how that business is going to run. So what happens if you get mad at the other person? How are they allowed to sell? Are you going to have, what shares are it? You have to think about things in terms of shares. So you have to plan out the exit of it before you even launch it. And that process alone stops some people in the process because they go, this is too overwhelming for me. And I have to say, if this is overwhelming for you, doing this business is going to be very overwhelming for you. Yeah. This has to be done. You have to get through what's going to happen. What happens if they steal? What happens if they become an addict? What happens if they just start making really poor business decisions? You have to have something in place where you can vote on that and you can go, you know what? Partnering with your uncle over there, it lost us a bunch of money and now we're barely limping on. Yeah. And you have to think, what happens? You have to approach your business as if it's going to be wildly successful. Yeah. And so these are the problems that you're going to have. Yeah. And once you get that structure down, you already know that part, how it's going to end, but it trains your mind a little bit about how to do the other things. So I think that that's very good because too many people will start, they'll be a sole proprietor forever. And the only time it gets them is when it bites them in the butt at the end.
And I really hope that your listeners take note of that because this is not a like you said, this is not an afterthought. Like this is
Right.
incredibly important. And I've seen this over and over and over again. Recently, I had some friends that in the e-commerce space, which is why I'm really excited to like
Right.
have you on, because I think your message is so strong and what you do is really, really important. That, like you said, there's a couple things. If this is too much for you, guess what? I just saved you a lot of time and hassle. Don't even start what you're doing. Like you need to be able to deal with this first before you get so deep into it that you just destroy your entire life with all of this stuff and potentially somebody else if you have partners. But like you said, like focusing on that, I have a business partnership of friends that I've watched develop over the past year, and I was in such support of them. They had so many different angles. I was like, gosh, you guys are just gonna crush this. It's amazing. Da,
Yeah.
da, da. Come to find out, and all of them are very successful in their own e-commerce businesses. They all bring something different to the table, different strengths, all these things. They did not have that. They did not have an operating agreement. Sure, they got in bed with each other within this LLC and all this kind of stuff. And there was, monies were, combined, and then they were all this stuff. So there was a legality there. There was contracts, but that whole operating agreement was not there. It blew it up. Now I feel like I'm a child in a divorce because these
Oh
are
my goodness. Yeah.
friends, and it's like horrible. And they're not putting me in. I just feel really, really bad because I'm like, oh my God. And it happened so quick. And the financial repercussions of that, not only financial, but your time. They were feeding in when they could have been building their businesses, because they were all basically solopreneurs. They could have been building their businesses, scaling their businesses, growing that. They believed in this collective vision that they had. They did talk about that and whatever, but they did not have that, like you mentioned, that operating structure. And that just totally, little by little, they're all in different places over the United States, which is one of the coolest things that we can do right now. You can form partnerships, you can work, remotely. However, it can be very dangerous in that regard. And it blew up, and they literally just finalized extracting everything and figuring out how everything was going to be. So not only did they waste that time, money, energy, what a horrible experience to have to go through. Lesson learned, right? They're all going to come back out on their feet. They're going to be good because that's just how they are. But like, that was just something that now they have to deal with, cleaning up that mess. It's just do this first. Listen to
Yeah, do that first. Well, because I thought it was funny when you actually brought it up. You said, well, I'm not so worried because, I'm married to the guy. What's he get? It's going to get done anyway, because if it was a divorce, then it gets done in the divorce, right? And so, but when you don't have like this ton of paperwork, you got to think about stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And so that's always important even for the mompreneurs. You've got to get it done. Yeah. I'm really amazed that you work with your husband the way you've done for 13 years. Yeah. Like, how is that?
Everybody is.
Personally though, when y'all have fights that have nothing to do with work, how do you separate that to where you're like, okay, we're going to leave that fight about my mom over here, or whoever it is. And then, but you and I've still got to work today. We've got this big day and we've got to do this. How do you do that?
It's not separated at all. At all. There's no compartmental. And I actually think that's one of the best things that, I think at this point I'm definitely capable to share on this. And it was funny, I was very reserved for a while, but I've seen what we've had to do over time. We're vastly different. We see things vastly differently. Being able to communicate, the tone of your voice, the eye roll, all these things that happen that those are things that happen. And you're like, you have to have a mutual respect. You have to be able to communicate very well. You have to understand how they want to be communicated to, and then it's over communication. And what has helped us though is that because we do work together, if there is that fight over there, it needs to get addressed and over with. We need to literally, and it's not just a squash and move it, because you squash and move it and it bleeds into everything else that you're doing, continuing your relationship, your work, everything. So we deal with this stuff. Like, even if there's something that we literally can't because, we're taking care of my daughter or whatever, it's like the one thing that we can do is we can say, hey, you know what? We understand this is a problem. We're going to table this for the next hour and a half until Kenzie goes to bed and we're doing something, but we need to come back to this and we have got to discuss it. And then we discuss it and then we can move on. So I think it's actually helped us to strengthen our relationship and our communication because we don't have a choice.
I think that is amazing. And that is, you think, oh, well, you have to communicate. Well, that's one of those things people say, but actually doing that, getting that out is really the difference between any relationship, not just a marriage, but also a business relationship.
100%.
And I'm going to say that if you are working with more than just one person, that is a top complaint I hear from companies and clients that I've worked with, is that, well, they just won't tell us anything. We never know what the management's thinking. It's so opaque. We're having to guess what they really want.
Yeah.
And I have went and done turnarounds for small businesses and entrepreneurs that have hired, even just a couple of VAs. Yeah. And the first thing I do is go talk to the VAs, and they're like, I never know what they're thinking or what they're really wanting.
Yeah.
And then you talk to the person who's doing, well, I don't really want to tell them because I'm scared, or because I'm worried about upsetting them, or I don't want them to fear for their job. Right. Or sometimes they just say, well, because they know that I want to fire them. Well, okay, so you want to fire them, right? And you're pissed off at them. Why don't you just tell them you want to fire them and you're pissed off at them? And that way they can say, well, hell, what the hell did I do?
Right.
And then they can fix it. Like, wouldn't it be easier if they fixed it than just firing them?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many people, and believe it or not, this is one thing where us women we've got the lock on this. We pretty much, most women are going to say, hey, I'm really pissed off at you. I want to fire you.
Yeah.
Whereas guys will hold it back. They'll let that grudge go and they won't bring it up. And it costs them so much money.
It's so true. It's the same thing with my husband at the same time, though. Like, I will bring stuff up and he's like, gosh, you're always, I'm like, this isn't a big thing. Like, it's a tiny thing, but I'm sharing with you because I don't want it to. And then, sometimes I'll push him, like they'll do something. I'm like, what's going on? Okay. Why? And he'll be like, okay, I'm like, don't just deal with it. Like, I want to know, like, you're part of this and I respect, you're a huge part of this, business. Like, you need to bring it out instead of just being like, okay, let's do this and move on. So I need to extract it from him. So you're so right. In the same regard, with Laura, I tried and again, was very apprehensive about any type of partnership. So when I extracted that and I knew how John and I work together, I was like, it's pretty prevalent with Laura. I'm like, hey, we need to make sure that we're always on the same page. Our vision's always aligned. We need to communicate regularly if something isn't working or whatever. Unfortunately, I don't feel like either of us really hold anything back, because the other thing on the flip side of that is you have to be receptive of it. And I know in my relationship or in whatever, I was not always like that. It's knee jerk to get defensive and wait, right. But if you can just stop and say, and I can even say that sometimes, like Laura and I will be talking about something, she'll bring something up and I just want to be like, no, I don't, and like, I'll say, listen, I'm like, I'm not sure that I like that just now. Let me think about it for a minute. Let me come back. And a lot of times, like just the other day, I was like, girl, like you are so right. Cause at first I was like, I don't want to do that. And then I was like, wait, you're so right. I see it. And so to be able to kind of do that as well is just really important. Like you said, in relationship or not. And if you can't do that, you got to fix it, because it's going to just be tough.
I went through a really bad relationship once, and I had to go to a counseling session, and I knew that it was bad. It was fairly abusive, and he said bad things. And so I'm in business. I'm one way. I would never put up with things that I was putting up with. Right. So I'm talking to this therapist and talking to her. And I said, well, I'm going to have to say something about it. I'm going to have to do something. He's going to expect something when I walk in the door, because he knows I'm coming to this thing and he knows I'm upset. And she stopped me and she goes, you don't owe anyone anything. You have to figure out you. If it takes you a while to get to that place, let it take you a while. Yeah. You don't owe anyone an explanation or answer right now. You just owe them to say, I'm thinking about something, but I don't have to give you an answer right now, because he was demanding an answer or something.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, I shouldn't need permission for that, but I needed permission for that. Permission to give myself that little bit of time. And so that's another thing, is that you can stop even in business and say, you know what, this is hitting against some wall. Maybe it's a limiting belief that I have, or maybe this is a bad idea. I don't know. I'm not judging you. I just need to think about this for a while. Yeah. And then you're allowed to take your time. I think so many people, especially women, feel like we're pressured into giving an answer and just rolling over something. So I love that you said that. And so anyway, we haven't talked about your show nearly enough. It's called Hot Mess to Success.
Yeah.
It's the Hot Mess to Success show with Amanda Balcazar and Laura hosts.
Yes.
And right now they are doing a $1,000 giveaway. So all you have to do is go to hotmesstosuccess.com/launch-giveaway. But if you just go to hotmesstosuccess.com, you'll be able to find the giveaway. Everything's there. It's a great website. We're having to wrap up, but what else did you want to give us? I really could just talk to you forever.
See,
So-
this is why I go to the events and I talk. That's why I get all these stories from these amazing women that get to come on our show, because we're like, hey, we'll just chat forever. We don't even have wine because you know what? It's 5 o'clock somewhere, but not here. So we don't even have that. But when we do, man, it'll go all night.
Yeah.
But no, real quick, I don't know if that for sure, that link is correct on that, and I just want to change, because you probably did see that somewhere, but I think we changed it. It would have been my fault. I think we changed it, so we simplified it. You can go hotmesstosuccess.com/win. So we did simplify that. So I think that that might have been before, and we probably misspoke on our podcast. So sorry about that. I'm corrected because we messed it up. But no, just leaving you guys with, come. I would love for you guys to come check us out. We would love to hear, if your audience is into this stuff, what we can bring to you, because that's really what we're working on. We know we're learning and growing, and ultimately our goal is to be able to deliver what our audience is looking for. So if you were intrigued by any of this stuff, just, shoot us a note. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Pretty simple to find us. Again, hotmesstosuccess.com has all of the stuff on there. And we're in the learning phase, and we're really excited to continue to take in what we need to bring you guys. But it's I'm
afraid you're going to get inundated with real estate investors because they are all hot messes to success. They're like, we just talked to a lady yesterday who did she does wholesaling and auctions. So she got a property for $10. She said, I never should have done it like this because I didn't go and look at it. I will never do this again. But what happened is she got this property for $10, the last little show of a hot mess to success. And she went to see it, and it was there's a plot of land, but it was a trailer on it with a padlock saying humans don't come in, unsafe for humans, former meth house. Like huge signage. Don't even go in, you're going to die, right? So she's like, oh, great. So then she takes the pictures and she decides, I'm just going to put it on Facebook. I'm just going to see if anyone will bite and say, you're going to have to pay some money to get this off of there, but here's the plot of land. She scoped,
Give me $20. I'll make 100%.
She made several $1,000s off of it.
Wow. That is incredible. Well, I need, what, that sounds like fun to me, even though maybe that's my next project. That stuff sounds like fun. That can be my next. So all the real estate investors, get a hold of me so you can tell me how I can get into that space.
That's right. You can be even bigger. Hot mess to success. Well, go ahead. So anyway, I want to thank you for being on the show. And Tammy, take it away and let everybody know how they can find out more about Hot Mess to Success and when we're going to drop this episode and all the other great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again so much, Amanda, for coming on. And it was wonderful meeting you at the podcast movement. So if you're there again next year, we'll have to meet up and say hello again. Yeah. And Jennifer, thank you as always. Wonderful show. We had so much information. I'll make sure that all of the links and everything for hotmesstosuccess.com/win are in our show notes, so everyone can find you. And if you do happen to have a question that you would like me to relay back to Amanda and her team, please do email me at Tammy, Tammy, at leafylegalservices.com. And if you have any questions for Amanda, anything that you'd like to tell us about the show, any feedback, we'd love to hear that from you. We'll talk about it in our next episode and of course, get right back to you. And if you know anyone that you would love to have interviewed on our podcast, please go ahead and email me and we'll get right back to you. And don't forget to like our show, leave us any comments that you have on whatever platform you're listening from, and we will see you again next week. Thank you again so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.